Hey Nate, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Tammy. How about you?
The weather's getting better here, but then they're saying
That's always a good thing.
we're gonna get dumped on in a couple days, so we'll see. I'm like, yeah, right. I don't believe it.
More snow.
Yeah, yep.
Such weird
So
weather this year. Weird weather.
it has been. They were saying this was supposed to be like the worst weather for snow here in Wyoming, and I'm like, yeah, no, it has not. So they were wrong. That's a job I would love to have.
Right. You don't even have
You
to be right.
right, you can just mess up and you still have your job.
You just like read the tea leaves,
Right.
and then if it's wrong, you're like, it's the weather.
Right. We can't control the weather. We
We
can't
can't
predict
control the weather. It's like, well, wait a second. You can't predict the. Isn't that your job to predict the weather?
Yeah, right.
It's like that old weather. You remember the weather rock?
Yes.
If the rock is wet, it's raining. If the rock is
Yes.
cold, it's snowing. If the rock is gone, it's windy.
They in Boy Scouts, one of the things they would make is something to hold the weather rock, and they would
Yeah.
do those tripod stands.
I remember those days. Ostensibly to hold a pot over a fire, right?
Right. Yes, true.
I don't know that I ever actually cooked that way over. I mean, I did plenty of cooking over campfires. We never actually had to build the tripod out of sticks. We always had something to hold the pots over.
Right. Or
But I guess it's
like
good to know.
or a grate,
Yeah.
the fire grate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you been up to? Anything exciting?
I finally ordered the truss for my front Dana 60 build. So I can finally get started on that. I guess I could have gotten started with cutting and stuff beforehand, but everyone says if once you have the truss in hand, then you can like plan what you're going to cut better because you know what
Right.
has to be cut off.
Right.
I watched an install video on the truss and it's pretty much everything has to be cut off. So I don't know that I really had to wait to order the truss, but whatever. I had lots of other stuff going on. So yeah, Super Duty Dana 60 front is going to go in the LJ.
Crazy.
I don't want to say it's going to be in there soon because there's going to be a lot of work to do the truss, and then I got to do the truss, and then I have a rear Dana 60 that's also going to go in there. I still haven't decided how I'm going to build that. I don't know what lockers I'm going to put in them. I don't know what gears I want to run in them yet. I don't have tires or wheels. There's quite the mountain to climb yet, but it started, which is the thing.
Right. Step one.
Step one: get the truss, get the front axle ready.
Of 300 steps.
Yeah, a lot of people say this is the hardest part, getting that front ready. So I figured I'd start with that. And if I lose motivation here, that means I haven't dumped a lot of money into it yet.
Oh, that's a good plan. That's a good plan.
No, it's a terrible plan. I want to get it done. I don't want to lose motivation.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I'm excited. I ordered it from Barnes 4-wheel drive. I looked at TNT. You guys
I don't think we don't have any for the 60.
You didn't appear to have a truss for what I needed, so otherwise I would have gone there. Artec makes a really nice one, but it's about twice the price of Barnes. I know some folks who did the Artec and they love it, but I just $300 versus $600. It's not a hard choice.
Yeah. The guys in the shop, we finally got back to our equipment's most all of it is up and running.
Yeah.
And actually today I went over there and Alex was putting together one of the trusses because you can pick and choose what mounts you want and we'll weld those on for you. So it's all ready to go.
Oh, okay.
All one piece with actually I think if you go to TNT Customs, our reels for today, in the reels, you can see one of the trusses and I don't know which one it's for or what certain mounts are on it, but it's a different way. I think I haven't seen anyone else do it this way, but I'm not out there searching trusses, so
yeah.
I could be wrong, but it comes all in one, and you just you weld it all on, and you don't have to worry about having other brackets to put on it because they're all on.
Yeah, the Barnes kit. In fact, most of the kits that I looked at, they come as a slotted kit that you assemble it at home, and they're slotted and they fit together really nicely. But all the welding's on you.
Correct.
So you better be decent at welding because this is pretty important.
Right, for
these
sure.
Things don't break off, right? So I also intend to, when I'm ready to do the welding, I'm also going to finally upgrade from, I've been doing flux core MIG welding or flux
Hmm.
core welding, which means there's no gas bottle. And it works and it holds pretty well, but it's not nearly as nice looking, right, when you're done. So I'm finally going to upgrade to a gas bottle and get the right wire and learn how to use that. And that's how I'm going to weld this, and that's how I'm going to do this whole project. Hopefully. So
So your wells look like you're stacking dimes. I think that isn't that a welding
yeah,
saying?
right. That's what people compare it to. And to be honest, I can lay a decent bead with the flux core wire, but it spatters a whole lot, and you always get, and they're just not as clean looking, right? So,
Hmm. You get
um,
those little bits all over.
yep. Some people argue that they're just as strong, or maybe even get better penetration than with gas. But I'm not like pro trained welder, so I don't know if I can really make an argument one way or the other. I just
Hmm.
want it to look decent, and that's why I figured I'd finally
Right.
take the step to gas. So what have you been up to other than moving a shop?
Moving the shop. Finally had my, besides going to get Ben that one weekend, I
Mhm.
finally had what we do is we all take turns. We work 9 hours a day so we can get every other Friday off. So I
Oh,
take
there you
turns
go.
with someone else. But because of the move, I was working lots of Fridays and some Saturdays. But anyway, so this past weekend was my first Friday off in 2 months, besides going to get Ben. So I just kind of caught up on my social media, my blogs. Ben and I went to Fort Collins, Colorado yesterday, took a drive down there. And it's so amazing because the mountains are right there. I mean, you can see them from Cheyenne, but they're right there. And I can't wait for the snow to melt because there's a lot of roads here in Colorado. That's one thing you got to be careful of when you want to come wheeling in the Rocky Mountains because roads are closed. Even,
I've
you
heard,
know,
yeah,
because there's feet upon feet of
yeah.
snow and they
Certain
don't want
times of
to.
winter they just can't clear them, so they don't
Right.
even bother. They just close them.
Right. And then even in the springtime during the melt, they keep them closed, especially like the forest roads because it's so muddy. They don't want you
Yeah.
tearing up the roads. So
Yep.
you're just kind of limited on when you can go, but just to see the mountains, I love it. I mean, you live kind of up in the mountains too, so you get to see the um
Yeah, we're
Appalachians or the Poconos. Aren't you up near them?
yep. Yeah. I'm like at the outskirts or the edges of the Poconos.
Right.
We're not quite at Colorado elevations though.
No. I think I'm in Cheyenne here. I'm at 6,000 feet, like 6,200 feet.
Yeah, I'm
And
at
I,
like 600 feet.
yeah.
It's not high.
So, and it's all perspective too. Like you could
Yeah,
be really, you think you're really high and you're only at 3,000 feet. But yeah, the Rockies, 14,000 feet. They have
it's
like, they
pretty
call
high.
them the 13ers and the 14ers. So there's lots of different peaks.
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
We were talking before the show that the company I work for, we're having our conference in Colorado this year, and that'll be in May. And they're talking about having an oxygen bar
Oh, yes.
at the conference. I'm like, a what?
Uh-huh. They
An
have one of
oxygen bar.
those. They have one of those at the Mall of America in Minnesota where you
I I
flavored
don't
oxygen
I don't even understand the
or
concept,
scented. Yeah.
but I guess I'll find out when we get there.
When I first came out here, I never had an issue. I mean, if you're going to get out of your Jeep and start, walking and guiding,
Yeah,
you get out of breath, but just regular everyday stuff, it feels normal to me.
yeah. I guess I'll find out.
Yep.
All the trips I have to do to Vegas, I sort of got used to how dry the air is out there.
Hmm.
Although the last couple times, because of all this crazy weather, it hasn't been as dry.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty
So
dry here now.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Different climates around the U.S. is crazy. So
I'll let you do this way better than me.
I do. I
Yes,
always
you
feel like I
do.
just ramble through it, folks. Make sure to find us on Instagram and on Facebook and other social platforms. Look for the Off Road Insiders podcast if you want to follow us. go to offroadinsiders.com if you want to know where to find us and find our YouTube channel. If you want to watch us live, make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel. Hit the like button if you are, because that lets us know that people like what we're doing. And if you want to get a hold of us, send us an email, offroadinsiders@gmail.com.
So I really like this next section that you came up with.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this,
community
right?
corner. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time just like looking at off-road stuff on the
Right.
internet. So I figured, why not share them with our
Right.
listeners? So
I kind of did this when I first started like really getting into YouTube. I would spotlight different other YouTubers or popular Instagrammers for folks to go follow. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing.
My thought here is also, if you just run across somebody that is interesting, feel free, throw their profile in here. But this is the community corner, and I found two things that I wanted to share. One is it's from an Instagram account called Jeep Army Co. If you want to look them up,
Jeep Army Co.
Jeep Army Co.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's like the Jeep Army. Maybe they're in Colorado. I don't know. I don't know what the CO is for.
Oh,
I haven't looked that close into them, but they're a little bit sensational, right? They share videos for the clicks, but I came across a video which kind of shocked me. It's a Jeep Wrangler JL engulfed in flames.
Oh dear.
So I had to share. My first thought was that must be an EV. It doesn't look like it's an EV. It's a plain old JL.
Is this one? Oh my goodness.
If you look for the telltale signs of the EV package, which are like the blue tow hooks on the front, and
right.
well, I guess you're looking at the wrong side of the vehicle to see the charging port, but it looks like it's maybe a Sahara. If you look at like the bumper and stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty much
some of the is the Recon bumper the same?
It's possible, but it doesn't look like an EV, which was my first thought. I thought, because everyone's like, oh, those EVs, they catch fire so easy.
Oh my goodness, awful.
That thing is just like engulfed in flames. I don't know if it's that. Didn't we talk about one with the turbo? The turbo caught fire a couple months ago. We talked about it on this show. I wonder if that's a similar problem. I would be so
devastated. That's a brand new Jeep.
Yeah, right. Now,
okay,
depending why it's on fire, I'm assuming they're going to get the thing replaced, right? But it's going to be a hassle, and who knows what else they lost, right? But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
that makes me sad.
I know, right? And then the other one is, are you familiar with Flex Rocks and Rollovers?
Yes.
Marvin, I think his name's Marvin. I always, when I see his videos, I'm like, I can recall his name very quickly. But when I'm not looking at them, I always confuse myself as to whether it's Marvin or Martin. Pretty sure it's Marvin. Anyway, he went to Honduras, and this video is he's racing. He actually got a loaner Jeep from the guy who invited him to come down, and he raced it in this off-road race in Honduras. And it's actually a really fun watch, just to see like this other culture, how they do their off-road race, how they do wheeling in that country. There's a part in the video where they just go out wheeling for the day, and there's a river that runs, or a creek, really not quite a river, runs right through the town they're in, and people just go wheeling in the thing. Like they're in people's backyards practically.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy.
I'll have to check that video out. Yeah.
Like a whole different culture. And he does pretty well in the race. They didn't show like an official score or anything, but they were, by the end of the video, they were saying he'd be in third place if nothing else changed, right?
Right.
So he did pretty well. And it was a really built YJ that he raced in, which is what I really liked.
YJs are very, very versatile little Jeeps when it comes to rock crawling and off-roading.
Yep. Now, the thing was, I don't know what axles it had under it, but it was on coilovers. It was built for race, right?
Right.
Although I think it still had the dash. They showed a picture of the interior of it. It still had the old YJ dash. So, yeah, I liked it. It was a nice looking Jeep.
And those links are in the show notes.
Yes, they are.
So check that out.
Yep. So pretty cool stuff. If you guys run across anybody on social media you think we should talk about, send us a link. We'd love to hear it.
And now our topic, which we didn't tell people what it was last last episode.
We weren't.
We had no idea.
This show is totally planned out in advance, so we're not flying by the seat of our pants.
And you know what? I think I kind of like it better that way. Actually, the guys over there, my friend, my coworker Jake, he's on the Toyota I can't remember the name of their podcast, Jake. I'm so sorry. But that's what they just, like they tune in and you'll
Hmm.
find out what we're talking about because they don't know what they're going to talk about until they all log in and start chit chatting. So,
That's how we did my old show.
yeah.
That was like an IT show that most people here might not care about, but we basically planned a topic a day or two in advance.
Hmm.
Because we wanted some planning to go into it because we were, you know, we just wanted that. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like being able to plan that far ahead, but you're right. Sometimes winging it's just fine.
And we're this is not our full time job, and we get
Yeah.
busy. We have other things to do. So, but I
Yep.
like this topic. This is actually one of my favorite topics because I love talking about all the different places that I think people think when you have an off road rig, it's rock crawling. It's going, on these obstacle-y trails, but there's so much more out there to explore. And some of these things Nate and I are going to talk about, you can even just take your regular, you know, Kia or Honda Accord on some of these roads that we're going to share with
Yeah.
you. But it's all about just getting out there and exploring. So we're going to talk about where to find trails.
So the way I think most of us get started, whether we know it or not, it's the way I got started,
Hmm.
is just go out and look, right? Like learn the area that you're in if you don't already know it. It happens that I've lived in the area that I'm in for most of my life. So I pretty much know the area like the back of my hand. So finding places to wheel once I got my first off-road rig really wasn't that hard for me. Although the thing that I was not fully aware of when I was that young and maybe a little too cavalier was land ownership is very important,
Hmm.
and whether you're supposed to be or allowed to be in the place that you're in, right? We've all probably done it. Go wheeling, don't really care. The gate was open, whatever. I went in. Just be cognizant of that. The more off-roaders trespass, the worse we all look, right? And we've talked about this in the past. But so you probably want to be aware if it's an area that you know is public, or that you know the landowner, or that you know the landowner doesn't care. That's one thing. But don't trespass if you can avoid it. But things like access roads, fire break roads, unmaintained roads is a good one. When I was up and visited the Bearded Jeeper, he took me on what they call them class 5 roads in
New
uh,
Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Yes, I don't know why I was blanking on the state he's from, but these are basically roads that are on the map. They're official roads, but they're unmaintained, right?
Hmm.
And they're some of them are just dirt roads. Some of them are actually kind of challenging, right? Some of them are really challenging. So that's a great way to wheel if your state has that sort of thing. Pennsylvania doesn't.
Yeah,
So
where I used to live in Maryland, there was nothing like that.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's a lot harder on the East Coast to find that kind of stuff. It's just different.
yeah,
Maybe as you get a little bit more into the center of the country, and then of course on the West Coast because you have all the public lands. And even if you're on public land, sometimes you're driving on the what you think or what is a public road, and all of a sudden you see all these signs, private property, but the road will go through the private property and just abide by those signs because this landowner is giving us permission. On the Rubicon Trail, part of the Rubicon Trail is on public or private lands. So just, when you're going through that part, just, stay on the trail. Don't
yeah.
veer
Right.
off.
Don't abuse it.
Right.
Now, there
So,
in a lot of cases, those are like easements. They have to give you access
right.
through there. But if you abuse it enough, I'm sure that they can make a case and make a stink and get that closed off.
Right.
So yeah,
So then another place to find trails, and I know, some people think it's kind of a lame little app. It's the Jeep Badge of Honor. Um, they have trails all over the country. If you're a Jeep owner, you can earn the badge if you go on the trail. Um, but these trails aren't just for Jeepers, and
right.
so you could search Jeep Badge of Honor on the internet if you don't have a Jeep, if you have another vehicle, and at least you can see, oh, there's some trails here, there, wherever near where you live, or where you're going to visit, because they're all over the country. So that's kind of another way to find trails. And then you have the off-road parks. There's lots of them. And one app that I really love a lot is Gaia GPS. That doesn't really, you have to really get down in there. It doesn't really give you a list of trails or anything, but at least like when you're here, like in Colorado, you can see all the different trails in the mountains, and a lot of them are like excuse me, mountain roads, forest roads, old mining roads. So that's a good one. And I know, Nate, you were just typing another one down.
Yeah, so first of all, to circle back to the Jeep Badge of Honor thing, one thing I wanted to talk about. Yes, some people have sort of a negative opinion of that particular app just because it's like, oh, look, I got close to where this thing is and I got
Right.
a badge for it. And sometimes you don't even have to be on the trail. But if you ignore all that and you just
Right.
use it as a way to locate trails, right?
Correct.
It's really not bad because usually those trails are inside of some other network of trails. So if you get to where the Badge of Honor trail is, there's a good chance there's going to be other trails there that you can wheel, right? So just keep
Correct.
that in mind. You can just use it to sort of
And
find
you can
trails.
follow exactly how the trail goes. It kind of
Yep.
guides you.
Yep.
Um,
So I think we have a couple spread out here that you can just sort of group as apps that help you find trails. Gaia GPS is one. Maybe it's not
mhm.
specific to help you find trails, but it does have maps in there that you can use to look for trails. Trails Off Road is another one that's
Yep.
specifically to help you find trails. Another one in that same vein is OnX Off Road. I know a lot of YouTubers are all about OnX Off Road today. AOAA, the park that I usually wheel at, we used to use Maprika for all of our
Yep.
maps. We're slowly moving into OnX Off Road. The downside to OnX and some of these others is that there is a subscription fee, right? But once you've learned where these trails are, if you're good with directions, you don't really need the app anymore, right?
Right.
The thing I like about OnX Off Road is it doesn't just map off road parks like we're using it for here in PA. It shows you public trails. It even shows you land ownership, right? So if you open up OnX Off Road, you find a trail you want to wheel on, you can like click on that parcel and it'll give you USGS parcel information. And then you can see, is this actually public land? Is it owned by somebody? If it's owned by someone, can I get permission from them to wheel on it? Right. So I think that's kind of like the cool feature of OnX Off Road, that you can find that land ownership. Because like I've said before, here in PA, if you're on a trail, it's probably private land.
Mhm.
There just isn't a lot of public land that you're allowed to drive on here. We have state parks, but not in the same way that some states do. Generally, those are not for off-road use. They're for horseback, they're for hiking, they're for mountain
Right.
bikes. They're not for
Off-road
motorized.
vehicles. Yeah.
Right. And if you're in there with a motorized vehicle, you're probably in trouble.
Right.
So anyway,
So another way is, local Jeep clubs in the area where you live or where you're
yep.
going to visit. They can, fill you in on good places to take your off-road vehicle. And then, like Nate was talking about, state parks. You also have national forests. You have, and depending on your state, like Nate was saying, some places don't allow motorized vehicles.
Right.
So you have to do your research there. But state parks, national forests, it's a national monument. It's the Mojave Preserve. There's different names for some of these places, but like the Mojave Preserve, they have the Mojave Road that goes. It's the old Pony Express Trail. So there's different. Yeah, that's pretty fun. But and there's also books online. Like there's Moab Utah Trails. There's the Arizona Back Roads. There's just certain books. Mojave Desert has their book.
And there's certain ones where you can purchase maps, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
how that the one that you took and you said was mainly for
Trans-American Trail,
motorcycles?
the TA. Yes.
Isn't that
So
one where you can like buy a map from somebody
Yeah.
and they've already worked it all out?
Yeah, he's got, at the time they were all dirt roads, but that was
Yeah.
back, he started it back in the 70s. So of course some of those places have been
Yeah. They've
have asphalt.
deteriorated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Some of them are asphalt now.
Have
Okay, that makes
asphalt now.
sense.
But
I
that's
thought you were
that
going the other way, that some of them
yeah.
had deteriorated and they weren't as
No,
passable as they
because
used
a
to be.
lot he did that for motorcyclists, so
Yeah.
that was more geared towards them.
Yeah.
So you get to see the back roads of the country, so that's a Trans America Trail.
You know, in
Um,
that same vein, Dirt Lifestyle and what's his name? I'm doing bad on names tonight, Tammy.
oh,
There's another
the
channel that does like overlandy stuff. The two of them got together and they are making
Brad with Trail
yes,
Recon?
Trail
Yes.
Recon. That's what I'm
Yep.
looking forward to. They're designing what they're calling Rocklander routes, which are
Ah,
like overland routes, but for people
with
who also like rock crawling, right? Because
right.
there's this sort of new fusion
Huh,
rock crawler and overland rig that
right.
they're calling Rocklanders, right? So they I guess they have one trail put together and published already, and they're going to work on more. And they're actually hoping that people from the community submit more. So that's another way to find trails, right? Projects like that. I'm not saying that one
Right.
specifically, but there are other projects that are like that.
I when I did we did the northern rim of the Grand Canyon, getting into the northern rim, there are some places that would fit that perfectly. But I'm not going to share them because I want to keep it to myself. Um,
Don't be
so,
greedy, Tammy.
and to be honest with you, if I had to get us there, I wouldn't be able to find it again. Um, so some other suggestions are, I'm going to skip around here. What I started doing is when I was living in Colorado, I'm like, God, where else can I go? I started searching for scenic byways. And yes, these are not off road, but they're still amazing places where you can see if you're into the scenic stuff and getting away. And these scenic roads could lead you to like other offshoots where they have other trails. But
And
every state has scenic byways.
not just that, right? This sport is definitely a progression, right? You start somewhere.
Hmm.
Maybe you start with a Jeep. Maybe you start in whatever SUV you bought when you got out of high school. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe it's not a crazy built off-road rig, but you need somewhere to start, and then you get hooked and then you start building. Or maybe you don't get hooked and you decide that it's not for you. Or maybe you don't go crazy and you just enjoy those sort of scenic routes, right? That's
Hmm.
something that I'm kind of passionate about. I want people wherever they're at to be able to enjoy this sport at whatever skill level they want.
Right.
I don't want people to feel pressured to go have to do the crazy difficult trails
Correct.
if all they're really in it for is to see some trees and some nice sights, you know?
Correct.
Like I'd rather
Right.
people be out there than people be out there doing exactly the thing that I think off-roading is, right?
Or exactly. And like
So,
even like this one scenic route in Colorado, it goes along, I can't remember the river, but you can pull over and you can walk down to the river and it's just beautiful, these rocks. And
yeah,
there's hiking trails off this. So, a lot of people have off-road vehicles to get them to a spot so they can go hike even further deeper
right.
into
Yep,
wherever they are.
yep.
So, anyway, scenic byways, just Google scenic byways in your state. Um, one of the things I discovered in Colorado is called there's links to these in our show notes, but it's the goldbeltway.com. And there's several connecting roads to this, and one of them it's on my bucket list. It's called Phantom Canyon Road, which you could actually drive on it with just a regular car, because they're old mining roads and they're just dirt roads. But then
We have a lot of similar things to that up here where there's
uh-huh,
either old logging trails or old coal mining trails
yep,
where they're only slightly worse than just plain old dirt roads, dirt access roads, right?
right,
Any like stock-ish SUV can probably get through these trails, but it's where I got started and it's where I got hooked on
yep,
the sport, right? And they're fun. Like to this day, there's one where I'll still take, the wife and kids, and we'll just go through. It's a national forest up here, where certain times of the year they open it up for that you can drive through there. And the kids love it. And there's a bunch of history there. It's an old logging area.
Hmm.
You can see all the old stumps from these. I forget what kind of trees they were, but like in the late 1800s, was it? These things were all cut down.
Yeah.
And so most of the forest is either the trees that were too small at the time, which are now, of course, grown up trees, or new growth. But every now and then you see these like old rotted stumps, and they're everywhere. And until you know that it's a logging area, you don't even realize they're there. And then you're like
Hmm.
looking for them, and you're like, oh wow,
Right. Right.
it's really neat. I thought it was neat. A guy that I used to hunt with told me that story about what this place used to be, and then I started looking, and there was just like this total realization, like, wow, I am standing in history. This is crazy.
And that's like we have the gold mines out here, and you probably even see ruins out there of old shacks or whatever. There's lots of old ghost towns of old mines, and just the history. And just to think that some of these people were using horse and carts on these roads. And here
Yeah,
we are in these built
that's
rigs, sometimes having a hard time. And you're like, how did they do it?
that's exactly how this area was.
Hmm.
They drug all these trees out here on like sleds or horse-drawn
Right.
carts, and it's just crazy to think about that. And then you really start to look, and you're like, yeah, I can
Hmm.
see this. It's neat.
Another one that was on my list. This is what, if you just start searching, you can go down all these rabbit holes. But there's this other one down near Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is like a mini Las Vegas. But it's a shelf road. It says Shelf Road transformed an untraveled wilderness into the major route for the stagecoaches and freight wagons traveling between Arkansas Valley and Cripple Creek Gold Mining District. The rugged route's name is the Shelf, a 5-mile stretch of road that hugs the sheer rock walls.
Tammy, you
Uh,
couldn't go up there.
there's no way. 5 miles of it. And you know how
You couldn't
slow.
do that.
There's no. I mean, I guess I should go look for a YouTube video to see
Yeah.
how sheer these
Yeah,
shelf roads are.
how sheer is sheer?
Yeah.
When it said shelf road, I'm like, wait, Tammy, what are you getting into here?
I think
I've
I
seen you in
decided.
heights.
Yes, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of shelf roads. Well,
It's
I
not
guess
the height that scares me; it's the sudden stop at the bottom of the fall.
right, exactly. Um, anyway, so just by searching, you can find those cool things. Another thing that I came across in Utah, it's a Jeep Badge of Honor trail. It's called Hole in the Rock. It's the trail the Mormons took um, to go. They were gonna go to an Indian tribe and try to make peace with the Indians. Anyway, so as we were driving there was a washout. And so they made this makeshift road to get to where we were going. So on the way back, I'm like, we're not taking that road back because we trailered my Jeep at the time. And I'm like, we're not taking that back. So we took this other way, and we ended up on one of the most dangerous roads in Utah. It's the most dangerous road in Utah. And it's just a regular, it's called the Moogie Dugaway. And it's a road built in those sheer cliffs, like you see in Arizona.
Yeah,
Um, but anyway, there's a lot of states that have these most dangerous roads, and they're just these sketchy roads that were built way back in the day, and we still
yeah.
use them to this day. But if you Google Moogie, Mogi, I think I'm saying it right, Dugaway, but it's a road that they dug out of a side of a cliff,
Dang.
and it's still dirt road, and it's a public road. It's just a road that anyone can take. Um, but anyway, that when we got on it, there was no turning back, and it's most amazing views, but it was pretty scary. But if you just do a little searching on the internet, there's so many amazing places out there. And I'm sure, in every state probably has these. You just got to do a little digging.
That's one more thing. I mean, mentioning the most dangerous road and roads you maybe don't want to be on. That's another important thing with finding trails is not just finding trails, but finding trails that are at the skill level that you're looking for,
Right.
right? And a lot of these apps will help you with that. Or just do some online research. If you find the name of a trail, I guarantee you'll be able to find information or videos of other people doing it. You're going to want to do some research, unless you're the sort of person that isn't scared by much and you're ready
Mhm.
for an adventure, right? But I would recommend knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah, and a lot of, like, you mentioned, trails off-road, and then even the Jeep Badge of Honor, they list the trail ratings, and we
Yep.
had a episode, I can't remember what episode it was, where we shared what the trail rating numbers or colors, what they meant.
Hmm.
And that's another thing, if you're just getting into this, you really should figure out what green, blue, 1 through 10 mean and
Right.
compare it to your vehicle's level and your skill level.
And get out there and experience some trails and see what the rated trails feel like.
Mhm.
Because even with a built rig, you may not be comfortable on that trail,
Correct.
right? I wheel the LJ places that people that are similarly built probably wouldn't, because of the level of experience that I have and the fact that it goes on a trailer when I take it home, right?
I remember that time when we went to, was it, Barney Rubble? Was that the trail we
Yeah.
were on?
Yep.
Along the creek there?
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, "I can't go on this," and here's Nate in a less
Oh,
built rig than mine.
you mean
Was it
BA?
BA?
The one that
Yes,
starts in that
BA.
little culvert and then you have to go up
Yes.
through the rocks. Yeah, I love that trail. I haven't been on that in so long. I have to get out there and do Barney
And I
Rubble
think
or
a bunch of people
do BA.
went parallel to us, but I was
Oh,
like,
you are talking about Barney Rubble then. Yeah.
"Is it okay?"
There's two paths on Barney Rubble.
One is, like, super hard. You didn't do that one because you were leading us.
I didn't do the super hard side of
Right.
Barney Rubble
But you still
because
did a side where I'm like, "I
yeah.
don't think I can do this," and I was freaking out,
Yeah, but
but
again, right? I knew what I was getting into.
right,
I'd been through it before and I
right.
knew I could do it. I knew the Jeep could do it, right? I don't think I would have been quite that cavalier if I'd never been through the trail before.
And, my Jeep totally was capable, but it's who's behind the wheel.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I wasn't capable with myself, or I wasn't comfortable with myself.
Yeah, and
So,
we've talked about this before. I've seen people come to the jamboree in crazy built rigs, and you ask them, "How much wheeling have you done?" None. This is my first trip.
right.
Okay, we're gonna put you on the greens. If you want to upgrade
Mhm.
tomorrow, then you can. But we we'd like to not see you destroy your vehicle today.
Right. I want you to enjoy the rest of your time here
Yeah.
at the jamboree.
And a lot of them, they'll do the greens, they have a good time, and then they're like, I really do want to try something harder. And then it's like, okay, well, now you've got a day of wheeling under your belt. We know you're not going to completely destroy your vehicle. But honestly, if they're insistent, we're not going to stop them, right?
Right.
If we know the vehicle's capable, then we just have to make sure the guides are aware that they're relatively inexperienced themselves, and then they can make sure they have the help they need.
So, finding trails now in the era of the internet is a little easier than it probably was back in your day, when you first started out.
Y I mean, yes, absolutely. It definitely took you needed a different type of network then, and that network was people. You had to know
Right.
people, you had to talk to people, you had to interact with people. And the stuff that was outside of my area, there were a couple of iconic trails that I knew about, like the Rubicon I learned about pretty early on. Moab I learned about pretty early on. But the whole rest of the country is just like a complete mystery. You don't know what's
Mhm.
out there. Now you can look up anything and figure out,
Right.
where to wheel. It's so much easier today than it used to be.
'Cause there's
For good and
so
for bad, right?
right. Then you have, everybody's, like, going to this one particular place, and it's, like, there's so many people there now,
Yeah, yeah. I
where
mean, like, that's both good and bad. I really wanna
right,
see people enjoy the sport, but I wanna see them do it responsibly.
right.
And the places that get crazy overcrowded, AOAA gets really popular. There's a ton of ATVs that are there, and there are days where it's like, "Could we not have this many people at the park?" I love that you guys are having a good time. I love that you're patronizing the park that I wanna see succeed, but I really feel cramped.
Yeah,
I really wish you
because
weren't here.
you kinda go out to to do this, to be out in the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
with no one around because you're getting away
Well,
from
that's the
the
downside to
world.
parks. That's the
Yeah.
downside to parks. Everybody knows where they are. Everybody feels there's a certain amount of safety that comes with an off-road park
Hmm.
because you're never too far from help.
Right.
You know, you get hurt, you break something, you break down somewhere. You could either walk out or, you know, you can call emergency services and they don't need a helicopter to come get you. They just drive an ambulance in. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So people, it's popular for a reason. It's popular because it's relatively safe and predictable, right? Wilderness roads, not so much, right? You really got to prepare to be out there.
And a lot of the trails around Moab, for the most part, near around the city, are the same way. They're pretty close. They're some of them have campgrounds on them,
Hmm.
like Fins and Things. They have campgrounds right off the trail, so it's kind of the same thing there. They're very popular. There's something to say about that secure feeling that like if I
Yeah.
break down, I'm not gonna be stuck out here for days.
Right, and there's a lot of people that I know that love wheeling at parks like AOAA. I don't know that they would enjoy true wilderness off-road is the same way
Hmm.
that they
It's
do an off-road park.
it's
I
totally
I
totally
might.
different.
I might. I mean, I've got a history of camping and hiking and whatever. I would probably enjoy it, but I don't know. I haven't done a lot of it because in Pennsylvania it just isn't a
Mhm.
thing you can do well.
I will say I've been going through my blog and updating it and stuff. I come across like all these old blog posts when I was at Women's Wheeling Day or at this event or that event, and I'm like looking back and I'm like, I really miss the off Rush Creek and AOA because there's a camaraderie there too.
Well, come on
And you
back. We'll go
can.
wheeling for a day.
I know
In fact, you were
we
in the area 2 weeks ago, right? What the
I
heck?
know I was only there for like 2 days.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Um, I was like, God, I would love to go back up.
I don't
Um,
know if I'd ask you to drive your Jeep all the way back here with that
yeah, I don't know if it would make
engine
it.
trouble you've been
Yeah.
having. So once
Um,
once you're back in a solid vehicle, then you should come back.
yes.
Go do some wheeling.
And I do have Rock Creek is on my bucket list. But that camaraderie and you meet people, like you're on a trail and then you stop and they're like, oh, here's another group. And you meet people and you're like, oh, let's go wheeling next weekend. And you just,
Yeah.
your network expands. I mean, that's how
Uh,
we met.
in the past week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever, it's since our last show. You know how Facebook groups now have these chat groups that are
Hmm.
pretty much just annoying. I think they're just annoying. It's like, why do I
Yeah.
want a chat group that goes along with this group? I just talk to the people in the
Right.
group through the group. Why do I need a chat room to go with it? But there's a group for AOAA, and somebody had a good idea to start a chat group for people looking for a group to wheel with.
Right.
So, like, if you show up at AOAA and like your buddy's backed out on you, or you know it's the night before you're going and you need some people to wheel with, you just hop in the group and say, "Hey, I'm
Hmm.
looking for a group." And chances are you're going to find somebody. So
Right.
I thought that was pretty cool, right? But again, that comes down to building that network. Even though that network is through social media at this point, it's not like a phone call or whatever message forum that you from the days of old. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool idea.
Well, that's what I loved about off-road consulting, because
Yeah.
not only the 101 and the 201, but the monthly guided rides.
Yeah. You
'Cause
were pretty
then
much guaranteed you were going to be able to get into a ride
right,
at least once a month if you did their monthly
right.
rides.
And then you can meet friends that way, and then you
Yep.
can branch off and go and do your own thing.
I just
So
I'm part of a tech meetup. We met last week, and one of the guys there, I was doing a presentation, and I had my Jeep as my wallpaper on my laptop when I hooked it up to the projector. And he's like, "Oh, you drive a Jeep?" I'm like, "Well,
mhm,
yeah,
yeah,
I kind of do." And he started
just
chatting
a
with
little
me,
bit.
and he's pretty new to the sport, and he's like, "I don't know." Like, I don't know where to wheel. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really feel like I want to try it. I'm like, well, one, I could take you out sometime, but like that takes some scheduling. And then I mentioned off-road consulting to him. And I said, you can get training with him and he does these guided rides. And when I said scheduled guided rides, his eyes lit up. He goes, that's perfect.
Right.
Like it is, right? You don't have friends yet. You don't have a group yet.
Yep,
Go have fun.
that's how I started, yeah.
Yeah.
And now look at me, I'm out in the wild, wild west.
Yeah. Right.
Who would have
How much,
guessed?
how much you've grown, Tammy.
I know. Oh,
All right, so I think we've covered it well enough,
yep,
folks.
I think so.
We've got a couple people in chat. If you guys, if you got any suggestions or questions or whatever, feel free to chime in. If anybody thinks we missed something, some great way that you use to find trails, then please let us know. Either reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. Look for Off Road Insiders. Go to offroadinsiders.com or drop us an email, offroadinsiders@gmail.com. But don't go anywhere because we have the news coming up yet, right?
Right. I feel like we should be playing some news music.
I don't know that I have any news music.
Yeah.
Let me see what I have here. Wait, I know what I have here. Is that news enough? I don't think
That is.
news.
It kind of reminds me of spy stuff.
You know what that is?
Is that from way back in the day?
Yeah, that's the intro music to Get Smart.
Get Smart. Yep. I'm like, God, I recognize
And
that.
you might be like, why do you have Get Smart's intro on your soundboard? Well, you're just gonna have to wonder.
Yes. So in the news, I'm going to start with there's this very popular truck camper shell, and it's making its debut. It's the first fully furnished overland camper. And the interesting thing about this, it's off-road ready home. It's an off-road ready home away from home for the ultra minimalist overland traveler.
Thing's pretty neat. It's like a
yeah.
little truck bed drop in, like an old school camper.
Right. It's like a slide-in camper, but
Yeah.
you can have add-ons. You can do add a sink, a refrigerator, cooktops. It has a little spot for you to sleep. But really, when you're overlanding or off-roading, you don't need all that fancy RV type stuff because you're out there to enjoy nature. I would think anyway. That's kind of the purpose of overlanding, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is
Now,
to get out.
obviously, that depends on the person, right?
Well,
we
yeah.
shouldn't really judge. Some people, they want to be out there, but only just enough.
Right. That's why they have those big RVs that are probably better, nicer
Yeah.
than my apartment here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times when I go, like, I don't mind a hotel room now. Like, I used to camp everywhere. Every time I went wheeling, if it was more than a day, I would camp.
Right.
But I think the Jeep Jamboree has spoiled me because they put us up in a hotel, and it's so nice to be able to get a shower and sleep in a soft bed.
Right. You're spoiled.
Yeah. Anyway.
So anyway, it's Tough Ports Overlanding Truck Camper. So I just thought that was kind of cool. It looks very sci-fi-ish to me.
It is pretty neat looking. It almost, and I don't know if this is just this must be the renderings that they did for design work, because it doesn't look like the real product, but I'd assume it's going to look like this. But it looks pretty cool little thing. And I tried to skim through the article and see if they mention how big it is, like what size vehicle this is designed to fit in.
And
mid-size pickup trucks. Here it is. See that? I just didn't skim far enough.
Right. So I know a lot of toppers.
Is extremely lightweight. It won't weigh down. It says it won't weigh down even a mid-size pickup truck. So maybe they make it in different sizes.
Yeah, I know nowadays, like with the toppers, the truck toppers, you can't just go buy a truck topper. You have to let them know what year, make, and model it is because of how the cabs slant and are straight nowadays to be able to fit.
Listen to this, Tammy. Toughport famously flipped one of its camper shells upside down and floated it down a river with an outboard motor attached.
Oh my goodness!
Just how weatherproof it really is.
There you go. You have a boat and camper all in one.
Nice. So yeah, if you get stranded and need a boat, just flip it off of your truck and take it down the river.
So if you do fall off that cliff into a river and you're upside down in your truck, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Good way to prove it, though. How watertight is it? Well, just watch.
Just watch us here.
Hold my beer.
So we have the Rivian R1S. So it's supposed to be the electric SUV that can handle tough off-road use, making it one of the most capable electric off-roaders on the market. So if you just Google that, there are so many people that are anti. This is not an off-road vehicle. Seasoned off-roaders don't approve of this R1S. But if you look at it, you're like, there is no way that thing would make it off-road. I mean, maybe an electric, or maybe a just like a straight gravel road. But
So here's the thing, right? I think we talked about electric vehicles pretty at length in a previous episode, and I think I said this same thing years back, before electric vehicles were really even a thing that anybody could go buy, right? They were just concepts, right? This is like early 2000s or something. There was a message forum I used to be on, and one of the guys there was an engineer for Bose, I think it was. And we were talking about just like speculating about off-road electric vehicles. And he said, in his mind, the most capable electric off-road vehicle that he could imagine, like I said, engineer for Bose, was one that had independent motors at every wheel, right?
Well,
and then, of
yeah.
course, the suspension to back that up. Now,
Right.
this is a step in that direction, I think. Now, I don't know much about this particular build, how much ground clearance it has, because this is the first I'm seeing it, right? And I don't have time to read this whole article while you guys sit and wait for me. But I want to say that I'm cautiously optimistic about that concept, because you said that that's one of the things here, quad motors, right?
Mhm.
I'm assuming that means a motor at each wheel, which means
Right.
there's no axles to get in the way. Assuming that you can raise the suspension on this thing like you can with, or maybe you will eventually be able to raise the suspension on this thing like you can with a standard off-road vehicle that has axles and whatnot, that could mean that you could get crazy amounts of ground clearance underneath this thing. Remember that you're looking at this thing in its stock form,
Right.
right?
And it
Would
is
a
$92,000.
would a stock Cherokee impress you as something that is off-road capable if you just walked up to one and saw it,
Right.
not knowing the history of the Cherokee?
Right. Probably
It looks like any old commuter SUV,
Yeah.
but then you take it on the trails and you're like, this is pretty cool. I can build this. I can lift it, whatever. So just keep that stuff in mind when you're looking at this. Now, if everyone's saying that this is terrible, then maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. I'm not saying rush out and buy a Rivian, especially if
Right.
they're 90 grand. But
I mean,
I like the idea of that 4 independent motors, because you can put torque where you need it, when you need it, right? I mean, look at all the traction control stuff and what that's done for the off-road world.
Mhm.
Like, this
Well,
is that on steroids.
did you see the Cybertruck crawling up? It's a obstacle on Hell's Revenge called Hell's Gate. And I'm like, yes, finally the Cybertruck. It's Tesla's
Yeah.
truck. And I'm like, finally they got it out on a real trail instead of just gravel roads. And it was crawling up there. But, you know, like what you were saying about the different wheels, I'm curious how, I'm assuming the computer would adjust all that. You know, like would you as a driver?
I don't know that the human brain could keep track of those things. Maybe
Right.
somebody who's really, really adept at this kind of stuff could. I mean, if you see someone who's really familiar with their rig, I remember once I rode with this guy. He's been wheeling the same TJ for like a decade, and he built it all himself. It's got air lockers front and rear and an Atlas transfer case. And I was riding on a very hard black trail with him, riding passenger, and watching like how fluidly he would do things like turn the lockers off and on when he needed them, shift gears, change gear ratios and whatever, just like completely on intuition, right?
Mhm.
Someone like that, maybe you could
Right.
control these wheels yourself if you really understood your car well enough, your vehicle well enough, right?
That's funny you mentioned the Atlas.
I
I was
bet
just thinking of that.
I bet this is computer controlled though.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way it's not.
Because even me, when I look at the Atlas, people are like, oh, I have an Atlas. I'm like, how do you know when to shift to where and when to put what to where? And
It's not that hard.
I mean, I
It's
guess
the-
it's just like when you drive a manual, you just
Well, no, the difference between an Atlas and a standard transfer case is simply that there's 2 sticks, and those sticks are for the front axle and the rear axle. There's never a case where where
Oh.
like you're changing gear ratios on the fly,
Uh-huh.
unless you're going like from 4 high to 4 low. The only difference
Right.
is you need to remember if you shift one out of 4 high to 4 low or the other way around, the other one has to do the same. And there's safety mechanisms built into the transfer case that prevent you from doing things like putting the front in high and the rear in low because you'll just cook the transfer case if you do that.
And so if you were just a regular Jeeper ball crawler, there's no reason to have an Atlas.
Well, the things that it can do, one, it's got a crazy low range, but the Rubicon is very similar,
Mhm.
right? The twin stick lets you put it in, say, front wheel drive instead of rear. So if there's a case where you want the rear to not have power to it and you want the front to have power, like if you're trying to pull the front end one way or the other,
Mhm.
and it's crazy strong because it's all gear driven inside of there. The Rubicon transfer case and the other Jeep transfer cases all have a chain. In fact, I might wager that most modern transfer cases are chain driven. I don't know that for certain. There's going to be someone like, no, this particular vehicle is still
Right.
gear driven.
Right.
Sorry, I'm generalizing here. A lot of them are chain driven, which means that the two shafts between the transfer case, not the transfer case, the transmission input and the output for the front, there's a chain that goes between them, like a
Mhm.
really beefy bike chain, right? And that chain can stretch, links can break, things like that. If you've ever seen someone pull it off their trailer and you hear that like ratcheting sound, that's because the chain is skipping, right? We had someone at the Jeep Jamboree happen to that once. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic here.
Yeah, we're still
You
talking.
asked
We're
about the
still talking.
Atlas. Here we
Right.
go. So anyway, Rivian, I have been watching for years because they were making their, I think it was a pickup that was geared toward overlanding, while Tesla was still making nothing but roadsters,
Hmm.
right? So these
Right.
guys have a little more off-roading in their blood. Again, I'm not going to rush out and buy one of these things because that's way too much money.
Oh my
But
gosh, can you imagine
I
your
I
car
love that
payment?
I love that people are doing this. I love that they're trying. That's the important thing.
Right. And there's always going to be haters, but
Yeah.
let's I just think there's so much negativity. Let's just like, you know what? If you don't like it, don't buy it.
The and we've talked about this before too. The electrification of vehicles is being forced on us.
Mhm.
And especially like the sort of person who likes off-roading, generally we're here because we also value freedoms. And when you're being forced to do something, that sort of flies in the face of those freedoms, right? So I can
Mhm.
understand why a lot of the off-road community is
Right.
opposed to things like having this crammed down our throats. That doesn't mean the technology is bad. It does mean, I think, that it's not quite ready for everybody to have an electric vehicle, right? But like anything, it's going to come along.
So next
I'm going to get
week,
off that soapbox
yeah.
now. And
So so next show's topic
hold on, we
again.
have one more.
Oh, do we
We
have one more?
Yeah,
Oh, I
remember
missed
the
it.
one about AOAA?
Oh, yes, yes. I'm so sorry. I
I'll make it quick because
this is a good one.
this is more like internet outrage. In fact,
Yes,
it could have gone into the community corner, but
it's road rage,
it's off road rage.
off-road
Um,
rage.
AOAA, right? The park that I've already talked about several times in this episode. They're an old coal mining area, coal strippings, right? So there's all these like haul roads that the large coal mining equipment used to drive up and down. Those are currently used for access roads to get you from the park, like
The entrance, the
yes,
building.
words tonight are hard for me. I blame daylight savings time. From the parking area, like where the main office is, out to where the trails are. There's this relatively smooth with puddles on it, like you know what I'm talking about. Road. It's really wide because like Euclids used to drive down it. Those huge dump trucks that are like the size of 2 or 3 vehicles. Um, there's a speed limit on it, 15 miles per hour. That's for lots of reasons. One, for safety. Two, because the road is extremely dusty. You drive more than like 15, or even at 15 miles an hour, there's a lot of dust. Nobody has been, well, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people ignore the marked speed limit and they just fly down this thing, which is unsafe. It kicks up a ton of dust, all kinds of bad things. So the park finally decided they took like sections of telephone pole and buried them upright like posts down the center of certain parts of this road with big yellow signs on them that basically remind people, slow the hell down, right? There's a speed limit here.
Right.
People are up in arms that these things are so unsafe because they're down the middle, right? Like imagine like a median strip, except these are just a couple posts here and there, right? People are so angry. They say that they're unsafe. People are going to hit them. In the dust, you won't be able to see them. And there's going to be a
Slow
lawsuit.
down.
And I'm like, guys, if you hadn't disobeyed the speed limit to begin with, if you weren't disobeying the speed limit now, the dust wouldn't be so bad that you couldn't see them.
Right.
Plus, they're bright freaking yellow. They have
Right.
bright yellow signs on them.
I'm looking at it now. It's like, it's no big deal, people.
If you hit these things, then
yeah,
you are the problem.
Right.
Now we'll see,
Totally.
right? Maybe there's some edge case, then these people are right. Like I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But the amount of outrage that I've seen over these things is just like insanity.
Here's one comment. If y'all can't navigate your way safely past these poles, you certainly have no business on the trails. Stay on the couch, please.
It's crazy what people will argue about on the internet.
Uh-huh. So true. So true. All right. We just finished up the news. I'm guessing we have no more news.
No, that's
we
it.
got it
I
out.
didn't sneak.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
got
sneak
it out.
any
Didn't
more.
You did tell me. You did tell me you were going to do that. I just forgot. But you know, you said it about daylight savings time. I feel like I'm like out of whack.
I tell you what,
or whatever time we're on.
So the physical therapy I'm doing for my shoulder, because of my work schedule, I do on Mondays and Fridays. I'm up first. I'm like their second appointment for the day, 8 a.m., which means I need to wake up at like 6:30 to be able to get up and get moving.
Right.
Today it felt like 5:30.
Yes.
Because of the time change. I hate daylight savings time. Stupidest thing ever.
It is.
You know what? Find me a presidential candidate who wants to abolish daylight savings time. I don't care what other platform they run on. They get my vote.
There you go. Let's just keep the time the way it is. All right, folks, don't forget to like us on Facebook, YouTube, subscribe to us. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us there. We're at offroadinsiders.com and Offroad Insiders on all the social Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right?
And we're not on TikTok.
We're not on TikTok.
We could
get them all confused.
But we should probably be making more short videos.
Yes.
Did you guys see our little promo video for the last episode? We got all creative with that. Go check it out. It's on YouTube Shorts and it's on Instagram Reels. So go find it. Go watch it.
And you can follow me at jeepmama.com and you can follow Nate at swbcrawler.com.
Yep. And if you want to listen audio only, just find us wherever you find podcasts.
And next week or next episode, it's a surprise.
It'll be another totally not seat of our pants awesome episode.
All right.
All right.
Everybody,
folks.
happy trails.
Yep. Have a great one.